on a little bit afterwards, but I will talk to you about all that in just a second. What I am concerned about is whether or not y'all want to join the show today. So today we're doing a total Q&A, and the way it's going to work is simple. Put your questions in the comments, and of course, um, we are we're going live on two different platforms today, which is fun and awesome, and I'm making absolutely sure that everything is up and going. And of course, send in your comments and all that jazz, and I might even tap you to be a guest on the show. So we've got the stuff going, we've got this stuff going. Finally, that's Twitch. That's Mr. Twitch saying, "Hey, run the mobile dashboard," that kind of thing. And yeah, so if you want to do all that stuff, feel free to send a comment or anything like that, or send an email to backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK @gmail.com. Or you can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Back in the Deck. If you need a little eye bleach, I'm working on more videos for little Saul, and he's been loving the whole singing thing and all that jazz. So we are going to do a whole bunch more of those. And of course, if you guys want to help keep our lights on and keep us operating, you can do that in a couple of different ways. Way number one, very simple. Subscribe to this channel on Twitch at twitch.tv/BID_P with your Amazon Prime account. What that will give you is a subscription, a tier 1 subscription for the month, and it saves you from when Mr. Twitch starts poking me in the back, telling me to give him his money, and you have to, there was no commercials for you and all of those people on that front. The second way is you can hit us up over on, you can hit us up over at patreon.com/BID_P. And for the simple cost of $1, one simple dollar, one Arizona iced tea per month, you get all those benefits, and you get access to polls and stuff like that. And the more you give, the cooler stuff you get. I'm giving away keychains and certain terrains and all that stuff. And of course, if you want to join the royalty tier, that helps us with our community outreach stuff. Now, our community outreach is pretty big, it's pretty deep, and what we got going on that is I go to community centers in disenfranchised places like Compton, Watts, certain parts of Oakland, working my way out to Flint, Michigan. I've worked in a couple of places in Nevada, and I set up gaming clubs where I teach the kids how to play D&D, how to make miniatures, how to build terrain, how to paint their miniatures and terrain. And I do it all under the guise of gaming, of course, but while I do it, I help them out with their storytelling, their creative writing, their statistical analysis with mathematics. It helps with the team building skills and all that stuff. And as a bonus, especially to the folks out here in beautiful Southern California, we also teach archery and sword fighting for the low cost to the kids in the program of $4. Not $4 a month, $4, because I make them buy their own dice. But I want to give them access to all of the stuff that I've gotten access to via the gaming, and the friends I've made via gaming, and all the ways that it helped out in the schools. So, but I can't do it by myself. So, the royalty tiers, our queens, our kings, and our aces are the primary ones helping me fund it, okay? And I promise you, I spend way more than $100 a month in materials for these programs and the kids and all that jazz. So, got any questions about that? Leave a question in the comment, because today is Q&A day. So that is what we're doing. Hey, what's going on, Fried One? So, with that, I gotta give a major shout out to my royalty tier on my Patreon, my queens, my kings, and my aces. Like my queens, Shannon Boom Boom Lay, Laura Holton, Jennifer Kroll, our king, Christopher Chalmers, and our ace in the hole, our major ace in the hole, Shaylee Watson. So, with that, I want to get the show started. Cause yeah, first I'm gonna let you guys know today is a weird one. Okay, today is a very, 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 very weird one. Um, because I got a whole bunch of stuff coming in. I got people coming in from out of town. I called up a garbage removal service and they're 4 hours late, so I may have to kind of put the stream on pause for a hot minute while I go yell at some people. And my mechanic is coming at the same time. It's just everything fell down all at once. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Got to get this stuff done. And that's just the way life goes sometimes. Sometimes you just got to juggle, you know. But yeah, so that's what's going on that front. Cheers. Hey, you just finished your game. Sweet. Sweet. I hope you had a good session, man. I really, really do. One of these days, I might ask you to like do an audio recording and send it to me. I would love to hear about what your games are like out there in Germany. And let's take a look at our people in NP City, like Fried One and Neon Arlecchino. Who else we got today? Another TTT viewer, Arabza. And of course, Abbott Costello. Who's on first? I don't know. You tell me. Nope, I don't know who's on third base. So, I'm switching between a lot of streams here right now because, like I said, we are doing this on two different platforms simultaneously. So that is what we got going over there. So I guess the first thing I wanted to I guess the first thing I wanted to address, ha ha ha, is let's see, one of our first questions. How's it going? It's crazy today. I got a lot going on. I'm cleaning. I'm working on the Patreon stuff. This month they're getting dungeon tiles and that's fun. That stuff is going out to the royalty tier where the other tiers are going to get the really cool back in the deck miniature stuff. Using the folding method that we do, I'll show that out pretty quick. So let's see. Let's take our first question. Does Unearth Arcana tend to be OP, or is it typically decent balance? I know it's test material, but most of it seems all right when I read through it. That is an interesting question. All right. So, for those of you guys that don't know, Unearthed Arcana is essentially the alpha beta, the gamma test of the stuff that Wizards of the Coast wants to put in the new books. All right. Of course, there's the alpha test when they write it, and then the beta test where they pull in some people, but then they release it on Unearthed Arcana. Um, because let's face it, one of the big reasons that there's patch day in every game company is because you can do quality control or quality assessment with 200 people and pay them and get something decent, but you're not going to get a real assessment of what's broken and what's not unless you give it to 10,000 people at a time. So they released this stuff on Unearthed Arcana, where you can access through the Wizards of the Coast website, and you can read the rules, you can implement the rules, and you and your friends can break the system, and then send a letter in to Wizards going, yeah, nah, this is a little broken. So to answer the question, does it tend to be okay, or is it typically balanced? Well, here's the thing about that, Neon. Um, Nothing, well, very few things make it out of the beta test that sound OP. All right. The whole essence of anything being overpowered, and this is something I learned about tradable and collectible card games, is the longer something's been out, the more continuity you have to deal with. So when they release the new stuff with Unearthed Arcana, it may sound cool. It might sound cool. and then you get it at your gaming table and you realize that there might be a combination that they didn't think of because they weren't weighing it against page 198 of the player's handbook in conjunction with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, in conjunction with Xanathar's Guide to Everything, like some players would do on their spare time, and figure out a way to get infinite turns. You see what I mean? So the only way to find out if the stuff on Unearthed Arcana is really overpowered is to test play it. I mean, that's just a whole thing. I don't tend to let Unearthed Arcana into my tabletop games because I tend to deal with new players, and part of that is breaking them of the competitive streak that new role players have, having not, excuse me, played a lot of cooperative games. You see what I mean on that? As long as they're thinking that they have to win, then we end up getting something weird. Okay. So let's see what's going on, Fried. When my players needlessly escalated a social situation again. GM tips on how to deal with that, and we did talk about that. They're not planning on doing that, and they don't want a battle-oriented campaign. You know what? There are ways past this, okay? Believe it or not, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I think it's like page 245, 246. Let me check here. I may actually have it pulled up. There is a chart for social interactions, and that's really important. Essentially, much like the alignment table, there are 9 categories. All right. There is essentially friendly, hostile, indifferent, and can be convinced, can't be convinced, and don't need to be convinced. You see what I mean? And you go through that whole thing. So when it comes to that, there is a chart, like I said, I think it's on like 247. I'm looking it up for you right now. Where when you start as the GM, you decide what kind of, you decide the psychological profile of 240 of the NPC, and you have them make all of their checks to see whether or not they push them in one direction or another. I really have to take this call. I'm sorry, guys. This is Solar.
Hey, Solar, this is Michael from Junkie. I'm at your front door.
Okay, I'm coming out in just a moment.
All right.
Cool. Yep. So with that, I'm gonna put the theme music back on, just so that I can go talk to this junk man real quick, and I will be back in just a few. So first, I'm gonna run an ad break, and then I'm gonna turn the music back on, and we will be right back. In the meantime, feel free to send me an email and all that jazz. Well, that was quick and disappointing, but that's okay. Sometimes things don't work out the way that you hope they will, but that doesn't mean that they won't work out. So, let's take a look, guys. Hmm. Yeah, so as I was saying, um, yeah, as I was saying, the only way to really find out whether or not what you're looking at is overpowered is to actually give it a test. What I would do when I would find things on Unearthed Arcana is I would run myself through the scenario, through just a quick scenario, like a couple of pages out of Lost Mines of Pandelver or something like that, and see how messed up the stuff is. Specifically, the Lost Mines of Pandelver or something from the GM's Guild, because that is Wizards of the Coast verified stuff, if you will. Okay? So, yeah, that is where I would say on that. Let's check out another question. Let's see. Yeah, needlessly escalate. Now, as I was saying, to you, I'm looking for in the Dungeon Master's Guide. The question that came up was the players escalated a social interaction, but they don't want to run a combat-oriented game. I totally get that. Let's see. They wanted to ask this one guy a thing. Uh-huh. Yep. Um, players' characters' fathers, they walked up to him in his restaurant, one after another, started talking weird nonsense. Then they chose to sit down at the table next to him in his mostly empty restaurant, discuss plans. I want to lure him out to the alley and beat the crap out of him. Wow. Natural one, he here. Oh my god. Okay, yeah, see that? When the players start getting conspiratorial, I honestly think that you handled it very well on that one. Um, so yeah. Yeah, that's a really good one. Um, so yeah, when the players tend to do that, God, where is this thing? Siege equipment. Wait, what kind of challenges are we talking? Nope. That's going mad. Non-combat stuff. All right, we're getting there. Yeah. Um. So yeah. If you have an idea about where they want to go, um, and by they I mean the NPC. Um. Once you give them a sort of personality trait and where they're gonna stay, or where they stand with the party, their persuasion checks and insight checks really come into fashion on that one, like really hard. um Let me double check to see if I can find um social encounter chart. Yeah, double checking on that. Uh-huh. Social encounter chart, DMG. Do 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 do. Social interaction rules are page 244. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so on page 244. Is this 244? 244 and 245. Here we are. We've got the conversation interaction chart. There we go. Back to my normal thing. No, I don't want that. Thank you. All right, back here. So, yeah, we've got the conversation interaction chart on page 244. Here we are. A friendly creature's reaction to conversations. And it's a really small thing. But this chart right here with the charisma checks. So, friendly creatures and different creatures and hostile creatures and their reactions to your stuff. And yeah, this chart does like the gives you what you need for understanding the charisma checks and the insight checks to let them know, hey, this will go one way or another way. Um, and I recall that there was a different chart on one of these pages that really gave you a real sense of where it's going. So, yeah, check that out. The Dungeon Master's Guide, page 244 and 245. Let's see. Bad roll on my Traveler game. Ruin the chance of infiltrating via social engineering in the first 5 minutes. It happens, man. We're contracted to steal one of two fire trucks on the planet. Oh, well, that's a thing. Let's see here. I'm also boop. Okay, don't have any questions coming in on the YouTubes either. Yeah, and again, once you set up the hey look, they heard you, then that's where everything breaks loose and it gets hilarious. Hilarious. So, honestly, it sounds like fun. Sounds like fun. And it's nice to know that dirt players are everywhere in the world. I'm a fan of that, a sincere and true fan of that kind of thing. So let's see here. I'm double checking. Like everybody and their moms have been contacting me today. And now I'm like, hey, reach out. And people are like, oh, no, 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 I don't, no. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. So what do we got here? We've got a bunch of stuff moving slow. Okay. That's okay there. Whoa, what was all this? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, and thanks for the follow, Angry Spexican. Yeah, they showed up to the show yesterday and they were very cool. And I guess they're following us on the Instagram now. Doo doo. There. All right. So that's all the way in. So yeah, yeah, GURPS is one of my favorite systems as well. I do really appreciate GURPS. Let's see. What else do we got? Oh, yep, yep, yep. I love it. I love it. People are always contacting me when I'm on the air. So, yeah, let's take a look here. Having some check. Hmm. How many dice sets are too many? You are hilarious. The answer is actually a lot less than you think. In my experience, um, 5 pounds is about too many dice. Um, 5 pounds, or if if you're using the metric system, then that's about 2.4 kilos. Yeah, about 2.4 kilos. Too many dice. Once you have that many dice, you're just carrying bludgeoning weapons at that point. You know, you would have to increase your strength rating just to go to game. So that's the thing. Let's see. What else do we have here? We have something else. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a big thing. Now, I got a question, um, via the emails about the, community stuff. Okay, well, that's very cool. Um, yeah. So, why should the kids join your program when they can do stuff on Amazon? Well, that is honestly a real question. And let's really take a look at that. Okay. Um, when a person, well, I've talked about this for a little while. All right. Um, one of the things is we have the internet, and the internet is awesome. I love the internet. I love having instantaneous information all the time. I'm there with it. Sometimes it gets on my last nerve, like it bypasses all my other nerves and goes directly to the final one. But um though they can grab stuff off of Amazon, though they can play on Roll20 or play on Zoom, the question is, if you were brand new and you wanted to get into this, do you know what materials to buy? And once you buy all the right stuff, how do you find a game? Okay. Um, and once you do find a game, and this is a really big thing for disenfranchised folks, let's talk about the fiscally disenfranchised. Okay. I don't care where you are, there are poor people. And in the world that we live in, poor people may have access to the same information, but they don't have access to as many guides through that information than as other people may. So let's say they want to start playing Warhammer 40K. Um, where do they start looking for the lore? How do they pick their teams? You know, do they have the money to get into the hobby and just experiment by doing a bunch of trial and errors? Chances are they don't. Okay. When it comes to D&D or most role-playing games, sure, you can buy the core book or you can buy the core handbook, but then you're the one that has to learn and teach all your friends. Are your friends willing? Number one. Are they embarrassed for not understanding quickly? Okay. And like I will tell you, my favorite magic system in all of role playing is in Ars Magica. Okay. Yeah, I know it's a deep cut. But the concept of understanding magic in a more recipe based kind of way versus spells and cantrips um fits my thinking, okay? But the nomenclature and the jargon of the Ars Magica book took me a little while to get my head through it. Same with Mage the Ascension. I didn't quite get that rotes were learned spells because I didn't come from a place where we use the word by or the term by rote um very very often, you know. Um yeah, hang on. Tune in. I'm doing a Q and A. There we are. So yeah. So when that comes to it, yeah, if these kids are starting out wanting to play, it's a lot to ask for them to save up $50 to get the book, to study the book and read the book and get at least an associate's degree in the book, and then to convince people around them to play. It's a lot easier to convince anyone of something that you know, like, and can show them. Einstein has a very, very, very cool phrase, saying actually, which is a person doesn't really know something until they can teach it to someone who's never understood it. Okay. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a really big fan of I understand this and I can speak in your language. So this is what this thing means. Do you get it? All right. That's how I know if I really know something. If I can teach it effectively to someone who would normally not have purpose for knowing it. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I started the program. Okay, that's the number one thing. So many kids around would love to do the stuff that I do, but don't know how to get started. Um, I guess while I'm waiting on the next question, I'm gonna get a little personal with y'all. As you guys know, oh, my camera looks out of focus. Hang on just a minute. I'm gonna fix that real quick. I will be right back again as we're doing that. Yeah, because uh, why didn't y'all tell me I was coming in a little fuzzy? Man. All right, and then we'll take the next question. Do do do. That is a lot better. All right. So yeah, it came down to the lighting. So let's see here. Why is it socially acceptable to make a pact with the literal devil to save the world, but the minute you want to raise the dead to do it, you're an abomination? Are you clowning? Seriously? Okay, all right. I'm going to take this question seriously, and then I'm going to answer that question seriously. Um, as um, as storytelling is a storytelling thing. All right. Hey, what up, that nerd soul? Yeah, welcome to the Q&A. Y'all need to be on his YouTube channel. I'm a guest on one of his shows at least once a week, and yeah, we do the thing. And he's also one of the Warp Tumblers. So tune in, you'll see him playing the character Oni, who's a space paladin. So, hopefully, yeah. I'm just double checking like what is my source here? Yeah, no. Looks like I'm coming in good. So, as I was saying, um, there is the intentions on what you want to do and the methodology by which you do it. Let's talk about a villain from modern culture. Okay. Let's talk Killmonger from the Black Panther. Okay. Now, he wanted to find his home in Wakanda, reconnect with his people, and then use their technology to conquer the world and subjugate its people because that's what they did to West Africans. Um, that's not saving the world. Raising an army of the dead is one of these cases of the disease or the cure being worse than the illness. Okay? Oh my god, we can fight a dragon and save the world. Woo! Or I can unleash an army of the dead on the dragons. Let's use this as the magic system. Okay? In Ars Magica, you have control over an aspect of reality for your magic. Okay? You have create, control, destroy. Okay? That's a big one. Much like Pyro from the X-Men. Yeah, you can raise an army of the dead. But A, can you control it? And B, can you put it away? Okay? If the answers to those questions are not, of course, then what you're doing is the whole what you're doing is an escalation of force to solve a problem which may lead to a bigger problem. Okay? Um Besides, raising the dead makes you an abomination. Sorry. It's just a thing. The dead have lived their lives. They have lived their lives. They are gone. They are at peace. They are doing whatever, unless they were bad people, in which case they are suffering. And if you raise them up, then you're bringing back another bad guy to save the world. There's just no winning in that one. Okay? Seriously. You know, and again, raise the dead to do it. So, um, mm, yeah, that might be true. Raise the Dead just has to be refreshed every 24 hours to keep them under control. That is true. All right. But again, there is the stuff that you can do. Well, in science and magic, All right. They both have this reputation of we're all about coulda, not shoulda. So you may be able, there is a possibility that you could raise the dead to save the world. The question is, should you? Is there another way? I mean, sometimes there isn't. Don't get it twisted. Every once in a while, you might have to raise a dinosaur to save the world from worse necromancers. All right? That might be the truth. But that doesn't make you any less of an abomination. It just makes you a heroic abomination. You know, people can be both. Stories are complex. Let's see. What other questions? What other questions would someone have? Let me take a look here. Hey, Sofakai, welcome. We're doing a Q&A today, not just a lecture. Um, so yeah, and again, this stuff isn't just for D&D, okay? If you guys got questions about any tabletop role-playing game or painting miniatures or building terrain or just I have a problem at school with this person and I want to know if punching them in the nose is the right thing to do, feel free. I'm gonna double check this email. Let's see. Why didn't you tell me how cool Foundation was? I did. I told you Foundation was good. I told you that I wanted to cover it on the channel and that I wanted you with me to do it. Are you kidding? Isaac Asimov's Foundation is one of the cornerstones of science fiction in literature. Okay, we talking way back. It went Jules Verne's and H.G. Wells, then Isaac Asimov and Robert A. Heinlein and God, who was the third? Um, I forgot who the third one was. Then it went um yeah, then it went the weird crowds. We're talking Philip K. Dick and Harlan Ellison and all that jazz. So, not if we do a season 1 recap. Boom. Yeah, when it comes to that stuff. Now, let's see. Let's check the email real quick. Refresh. Refreshing the email. Oh, what about 100 AD's A True Story? I'm not familiar with that, Neon. Oh, balls too wild. What's the best way to bless your dice after they've been sent to dice jail for too many ones and too many twos? Now, that is a very interesting question. Okay, AD. I'll have to look that up. Um, so balls to wild. Um, when Number one, where is your dice jail? The only correct answer to that is the freezer. Okay. When you have rolled too many botches and you've talked to it and you've done the Adam Sandler, this is your home. Are you too good for your home? Then you give it a new home as the freezer. Okay. That's what I gotta say. You stick them in the freezer until the next game because they know what they did. Okay. And then you take them out, and much like your children, when you take them off of restriction, you got to be like, look, I need you to do this. All right. You and I are supposed to be a team. Okay. We're supposed to be a team. And you're not pulling your weight. And I need you to pull your weight. I don't like putting you in the freezer. It's cold in the freezer. I imagine that I'm in the freezer, but if you keep rolling to that single digit that makes sure that I can't have fun, yeah, I'm going to have to replace you. Okay. And then if it does it again, instead of putting it in dice jail, you leave it in the bag. Trust me, it's not going to start a revolution. All right. Let's see here. The oldest known science fiction story. And there we go. Okay. So yeah. Stuff is just being weird. Um, AD sci-fi story. The whole thing is on Project Gutenberg. Thank you. The Otis sci-fi story. I mean, don't get me wrong. I could have brought up Mary Shelley and Frankenstein and all that stuff. Well, I will have to I'll have to read it. A work from 1616 is the first ever science fiction novels. Okay, cool, cool. I will take a look. But if it's a true story, then it's not science fiction. It's a scientific anecdote. Um, so yeah, let's see. Now, I was checking the email. Oh, this one might actually interest you, Nerd Soul. Um, what do I do when my character doesn't feel as powerful as I think it should? Okay. All right, let's get into that. First off, I would say talk to your GM. Let them know what it is that you think is not very powerful or workable about your character. Um, and then run through a couple of scenarios with your dungeon master. If you don't think it's very powerful, well, let me tell you a story. When I was a lot younger, and I mean a lot younger, and I was first learning D&D, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't quite get. I didn't get Deco, I didn't get combat, and being at the table with everyone else that could like swipe their maces like Sauron at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, just one swipe and five or six orcs would go flying. And I didn't quite understand what my spells did. I didn't quite understand how combat worked. And I didn't even know to add my strength bonus to my melee attacks. All right. So here I am as a bard kind of going, I'll sing a song, sing a song, sing out loud, sing it strong. This is not the kind of game I thought I was going to be playing. Why does he get to kill all the things and I have to sit here singing? You know, and the people I was playing with didn't quite explain to me how that stuff was going. Later on, I think this was in third edition, when I picked up the Bard again. I created the thing for third edition. And when I did that, I I sat down with my old friend TJ. And TJ was the dude that got me the job at the game store cuz I was unemployed and I was waiting for job interviews because I dropped off like 100 job applications. But I was in a place where the color of my skin did have a lot to do with whether or not I was hireable. Um, and so I'd be at the game store because it was across the street from my house. And he kind of walked me through what playing a bard would be. And no, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff up front, but he showed me how my character wasn't just good in combat, but it was also good before and after combat. And once I got a larger sense of what a bard could do, I had a lot more fun playing the game. When I first played a paladin character, I was all about the smites, baby, all about the smites. And I was using up my spell slots left, right, and sideways. And then someone showed me that the auras are really cool. You know, not a lot of GMs play with like standing effects like fear and stuff like that. But just the idea that this dude, because of his faith or his commitment or his code, um, was immune to disease, immune to exhaustion practically. It was just he kept going. I'm like, dude, this guy is like Superman on a regular thing. But here's the other part, and this is something that I noticed years and years ago, and that is about escalation. Every once in a while, it's really good for the GM to take their players back to the beginning. Take it back to the beginning. And when I say that, I mean once they get to like level 5, 6, 7, let them get into a bar fight. Let them get into Let them get attacked by the same levels of brigands that they got attacked by when they were first level. Okay, and let them see how different the whole thing is. Like when a townsperson or a brigand, somebody that has like 1d4 hit points like a wizard because they're not athletes or anything, goes against like a level 7 fighter, it's done. Okay, it is done. Especially if that fighter's a hobbit that or a halfling, that is just hilarious. Come here, child, give me your horse. Oh, I think not, sir. Ooh, I finally get to have a brawl. And then he just dusts them, Um, that is a thing because when it comes to threat level, um, I'll get to that. Um, when it comes to threat level or CR, a lot of people look at it as a joke, okay? But what it's supposed to be is an escalation of challenge so that it doesn't feel like you're playing the game with a cheat code all the time. Also, so that it doesn't feel like you're outmatched and outgunned all the time. All the time. But every once in a while, you have to go back to the lower levels just to see what you can do. Now that doesn't mean be a murder hobo or a bully or something like that, but yeah, if you're hanging out at just a plain old bar or you're doing something mundane in story and you end up getting into a fight with a townsperson, believe me, there will be a difference. Let's see, what's the next question? The weirdest thing I've ever had a mimic pretend to be. Weirdest or cruelest? That's the question. Okay. Weird or cruel? I'm gonna need you to leave a comment on that. Primarily because mimics, especially um mimics that aren't colossal, primarily have a thing to be wood or steel. That's what they look like. Their biology is very specific. Um, okay, both. One of the cruelest things I've ever had a mimic pretend to be was an outhouse. This was a colossal mimic. um, and it was a colossal mimic that was kind of teamed up with another colossal mimic because the bigger they are the more intelligent they get, and they were kind of a married couple, and she was the house, he was the outhouse, and I had players that found the house in the wood. It was a very Hansel and Gretel type thing on that, and one of them had to go to the bathroom, and then that one ended up getting into a fight with the bathroom. Um, the weirdest thing I ever had it be, yeah, was the bathroom. I mean that's just the whole thing. An outhouse, that turned out to be a great big mimic. I loved it. It was hilarious. And I made sure that the player survived. Um, the cruelest thing I've ever had a mimic pretend to be was a bed. Okay, I made it pretend to be a bed, and it used its tendrils to pile a bunch of hay on itself, and it made itself. So when I had characters that were dungeon delving and they picked the lock to the room, they set up everything to take their long rest. They ended up fighting over who got to sleep on the bed. The bully of the party got to sleep on the bed and was in for a big surprise when the bed tried to eat him. I did this shortly after I heard the Patton Oswalt skit about Deathbed, the bed that eats. And I said, you know what? I can do a mimic. But I've seen mimics as pianos. The most common, of course, is the chest. The second and third most common, or actually, the second most common is a door, but the meanest, and this is something that I have never done and I never plan on doing, is making the mimic the floor. Okay? It can do it. It can do it. It could spread itself out and turn into the wood paneling on the floor. That's just mean. All right, that is just messed up. So doors, floors, bed, and an outhouse. Um, so there's that. Anybody else got a question over here? Let's see here. Hmm. Yep, yep, yep. All right. Nothing from Abbott and Costello yet. Let's see. What's the most obvious thing you've taken inspiration from for in a campaign that your players should that I've taken inspiration from? Oh my god. See, here's the thing, and we talk about this on the show a lot, Neon. Um, when you say inspiration, I thought you meant the game mechanic. Um, I take inspiration from everywhere when I'm putting stuff in a story. Okay. Um, that is a really, really, really big thing for me. Um, Sometimes I'll see. Now I'm talking plagiarism. Um, Oscar Wilde said, "Talent borrows, genius steals." Okay. Um, when oh God, let's see. I have run my players through entire storylines of Batman the Animated Series and not told them, like Perchance to Dream. Um, I've put players through um I've put players in scenarios that came straight out of stuff that we read in our book club. Okay. I mean, I was like, I'm a really big fan of the Dresden Files. We're up to book like 17, and I ran them through scenarios that were straight out of book 4. Just straight out. And these are things I've talked with them about before I GM the game. Um, Most of the time, the stuff that I straight up plagiarize, see, I don't quite plagiarize, but I do satire a lot. And the difference between the two is that I'm making fun of stuff. But the major things that I take inspiration from is real life. I will base an NPC off of a celebrity that I've met and my interaction with them. Or I will base an NPC off of a family member of mine. Um, Sometimes I'll base an NPC off of a family member of another player at the table. Um, yeah, I mean, those are those kinds of things. Like if I find that, like as a GM, I sometimes help my players or have my players help me through stuff that I'm going through in real life by making the scenario based on something that I am going through or I just got done going through. You see what I mean? Um, yeah, it's this is kind of catharsis based on real life and getting help from friends who would normally feel it's not their place to interfere. It's one of those things. Um, but as far as plagiarism from popular culture, I've taken stuff straight out of Batman the Animated Series. I've taken things out. Now, here's the thing though. I watched a lot, a lot of TV in the 80s, okay? A lot of TV. So when I decide to be inspired by something, I'll go back through old episodes of like Beans Baxter or the A Team or Knight Rider. Um, I've run so many people through episodes of Airwolf and V, and they never knew. They never knew. Especially when there was like an Eric Cochran thing. Um, it's funny because I'm running a sci-fi game right now. Warp Tumblers, Dark Matter, Nerd Soul is one of the players. And a lot of the stuff that I put them through have been from movies that I've seen. And I spent a lot of time in the local video store when I was growing up. So there are so many things that I've seen that I know no one else has seen. Like look up Robot Ninja. I dare you. Uh, so yeah, when it comes to stuff like that, I'll take characters or storylines from stuff that I watched 20, 30 years ago and be like, does this still play? Let's see. Brian Tornout says, I have a question that's somewhat out there. All right. Um, but it has to do with a massive project that you're working on. Do I think there's a lot of people out there that would enjoy a hyperistic, military-esque tabletop role-playing game? When in a single term, you might roll as many 20s or even more D100s. Um, yes, but it depends on where you are geographically. Um, Most tabletop wargaming, and I'm talking Warhammer 40K and all that stuff, that was inspired by Avalon Hill. Okay, Avalon Hill is the company that makes the war recreation games, man. Um, so there is a huge contingents out there that want gritty, not grim dark, but gritty, militaristic. We're talking Full Metal Jacket. We're talking um we're just talking brutal, regimented games that are out there. And this is coming from someone who used to do a lot of gaming with vets. Most new players tend to think of TTRPGs um, within that realm because, well, realistically, end quote, tends to come out. So yeah, as far as the gaming mechanics though, a hyper realist, when in a single term you roll as many as 20 or even more D100s. Now, that's the thing. Game as far as game mechanics go, yes, I know that there's a lot of people out there that would run that would like a game where you rolled a bunch of D100s. The question is, what is the context? How um how do the rolls translate? Okay. Call of Cthulhu is a D100 game. You do everything by percentiles. For those of you guys that don't know, when you get your own set of dice, you'll get a D10 that's that's marked 1 to 0 and another D10 that's marked 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 double up. All right? Um and the fact of the matter is you roll those two together and you get and that's what you get. 65, 41, that kind of thing. And it stops at 100, which is all zeros. Post-apocalyptic, highly militaristic setting which combines 19th and 20th century tech with sci-fi stuff, so the setting is rather solid. Okay, all right, that does sound good. Um, kind of diesel punk meets what, 1980s, 1960s, or 21st century? That's my question on that. I'm not a big fan of post-apocalyptic, but that's just my personal taste. Um, so again, the question is when you're rolling percentiles, all right? Um, when you're rolling your D100s, my question is what do they accomplish? How easy are they to read? And how how well do you get the game to flow? Okay? There is a big thing with players right now where easy to understandable and quick are the two biggest things. This is why Kill Team is getting a lot more customers, a lot more new players than 40K. There are some people that like the 8 hour long 2,000 point game. And then there are those of us who can actually afford to buy miniatures that's got maybe 2 hours at a time. So yeah, that's a big thing. No classes but skill trees. Okay. Events. Um, but the combat is so brutal and thought requiring that you're kind of forced into teamwork. I like it. It's the type of game that when you charge at an enemy and open stuff, you get a headshot and insta killed. Brutal. I've played a lot of games like that. I think people will enjoy it if at your session zero. And check this out during your game test. Um, the big thing is you let your players know that you're going as real and as gritty as you particularly can with this. So a gun is something to fear. Um, and a character can be killed very easily by a stray dog versus by an enemy soldier. Both of these things are there. Um, so yeah. So that's the big thing. Military commanders, and some of the fellow lab workers. Oh, you're a scientist as well. Well, if your market are chemists, um, military strategists, and recently discharged veterans, you're going to be onto something. There's a market out there. You just got to know who to talk to. Let's see. Price tag difference and less investment to try different factions on Kill Team. It's very true. It's very true. Um, so yeah, so when it comes to that kind of thing, um, yeah, what's something cool that you wish your players discovered but they missed it? I don't understand the question because there's a lot of cool things that I wish people had gotten but they missed it. Like lemonade stands as children and playing in the street. Playing like street hockey and going roller skating and stuff like that. There's a lot of things I wish my players could do. Um, hmm. But I don't really believe. Oh, okay. Like what unique loot I put in a dungeon or something, and they just didn't find it. In truth, there's a lot of stuff. I don't quite go the Monty Hall angle, but then I do. Every time I put up I put up some loot in a game, I try and keep all my loot feeling steady. Okay. And by steady, I mean, if it comes with a really cool thing, it's going to come with a consequence. Um, that consequence may be in its function, it may be in its reputation. But there's a lot of times. Matter of fact, in the last episode of Warp Tumblers, one of my players almost missed a really cool upgrade to their character that I came up with, primarily because I allowed the players to pick which ones they wanted from the price that we had going. And I'm like, well, I made that for you. I made this for this player. I made this for this player. And let's see how they decide. Um, but yeah, quite honestly, a lot of the times, let's see. I know one of the cool things that I did was an address and files game that I talked to you guys about. Um, I gave them everything they needed to win the day and defeat the vampires without causing collateral damage. All they had to do was stop and think about what they had, and they didn't. And so instead of um getting a lot of cool points or a lot of fate points for figuring out the puzzle and attacking it like wizards would, with intelligence, they did it the way that wizards would, with magic and to see if they could. And they ended up letting a lot of people die. They saved the city, but they didn't save the hostages. And again, all they had to do was convince the NPC that I had with him that he was holy enough to bless things because he was so pure of heart. And all he had to do, I mean, they even picked the dude up from a church, okay? And all he had to do was bless the center column of the building. Okay? That's all he had to do. That was it. But they decided to do something different. Oh no, no, they did not. You're kind of creepy, Neon. But no, they did not put the bones of the dead to good use. Necromancy is against magic law. They didn't even know that they didn't save the hostages because the building came down around them based on the effect that they did. So they didn't think it through, but they're like, "Yay, we defeated the bad guys!" And they found out about the hostages dying on the news report later on after they'd gotten away. So, um, so yeah, that's kind of a big thing. But as far as loot and all that stuff goes, um, when my players miss it, it's fine. I can put it somewhere else later. You know, if let's pretend I wanted to give like these level 1 characters a Vorpal sword just to see what kind of mischief they would get into. If they missed it in the first dungeon that I put them through, I'll drop it in the second. They'll never know. I don't go through everything at the end of the session going in. This is what you missed. No, that because that can make players really, really, um, really, um, um discouraged. But let me run a commercial real quick and I will be back in a minute. All right, guys. I got time for one more question. And then we'll call it a day. Let's see here. Uh, let's double check here. But Serena. Is that Serena? Let me double check here. Uh that is Serana. All right. Do you have any questions or comments or anything like that? I would love to just talk to you about this kind of thing. Um, so yeah. So when that kind of stuff comes down, um, yeah, I don't tend to tell my players what they didn't get, when they go through dungeons and stuff like that. But most of the time, if my players can see a map of the dungeon that they're going through or the city that they're going through, they do what we learned to do in Final Fantasy or The Legend of Zelda, which is go from square to square to square, looting every square inch if I let them get away with it. So yeah, that is a thing. Um, so yeah, my players don't tend to miss anything unless they choose not to look, which doesn't happen very often. But yeah, looks like our hour is up, and that is a thing. So I want to thank you guys for showing up today. Um, if you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to send an email to backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. Reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram, same name. If you need some eye bleach, check us out on TikTok. And if you guys want to help keep us open and all that stuff, please subscribe to the channel, but just with your Amazon Prime. If you want to hook us up or help us out even more than that, then head on over to patreon.com/BID_P and become a decker. For that same subscription price, I can at least send you something. Some kit of blocking and hindering terrain and a keychain. And that way you're really helping us out on that. And of course, if you hit the royalty tier, like our queens, Shannon Boom Boom Lay, Jennifer Kroll, and Laura Holton, our king, Christopher Chalmers, and our ace in the hole, Shaylee Watson, then, oh my God, you get a whole bunch of cool stuff. We're talking masks, dungeon tiles, miniatures, dice rollers, and of course, the peace of mind and the big flowing thing in your heart to know that you are helping out kids get into this hobby that may not be able to get into it any other way. Not to mention the archery and sword fighting. Come on, man. when you were a kid, didn't you want to learn how to use a bow and arrow and all that jazz? But anyway, got any questions? Send me an email. This has been fun, although your guys' wacky questions have been wacky. But with that, I want to thank you guys. Now, tomorrow, my mentor is coming into town. So if I do a show tomorrow, it's going to be a little bit later than 3 p.m. We're talking maybe 5, maybe 6. That all depends on what the airport's looking like and what traffic is looking like and all that jazz. But either way, I'm Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer. And if anybody tells you that you shouldn't be here or you shouldn't like what you like because of the circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, or your budget, you can tell them to take any of those cards they're pulling on you and put them back in the deck. This is Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerers, and I want to thank all of you guys for joining me today on the dark side of the room.